Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com, and today we're going to be discussing the operating system known as Google Chrome OS, also known as Chromium. I think Google Chrome OS is probably going to be the term that's going to stick for this particular OS. So Google Chrome is unlike any other operating system. Basically, it's an entire operating system built within a web browser. And Google has started rolling out their own computers, referred to as Chromebooks. And what I've done, if you, after this class, decide, you know what, this sounds pretty cool, you can go into our little store here at PCClassesOnline.com/store. You will see that I have added a category at the bottom left called Google Chromebooks. And you'll find the top 4 models that I recommend here. Unfortunately, all of these do come from Amazon, and it doesn't always list the price. The price is really inexpensive. They tend to range anywhere from, I've actually seen them as low as $175 up to a couple hundred. So one of the things I have found most appealing about Google Chrome OS is that it's sort of like a happy medium between an iPad and a real laptop. Because with a real laptop, you're paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if not over $1,000, if you're getting something like a Mac. But with an iPad, you have really limited abilities as far as what you can do. Also, of course, things like Flash you cannot run. With a Google Chromebook, it's a little bit different because you get some features that you just don't get with any other device. For example, let's say you're the kind of person who travels a lot. You can get a laptop with built-in 3G service, meaning you do not need a wireless network to get online. You can use cell phone signals and a pay-per-month plan to get online, the same way that a 4G iPad would get online, except with this it's a almost full computer. Now there's some downsides. There are certain programs that you cannot run on a Google Chromebook. So for example, Microsoft Word, Excel, those kind of programs you cannot run. However, there are workarounds for most of those situations. So I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite apps, generally speaking, how to navigate it, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun here. The other part, of course, we all love is the price. The fact that it's so inexpensive. I have found that this computer I tend to recommend to 2 types of people more than anyone else. We'll call it 3. People who travel. I think it's a great laptop because if your computer gets stolen while you're traveling and you paid $200 for it, you're not going to freak out, okay? It's not the end of the world. Also, I think for kids, this is a great first computer. Just make sure you kind of lock down those parental settings to make sure that they're not exposed to any of the horrors of the internet as we know it. Also, if your kid drops the laptop, if they spill something on it, it's not the end of the world. It's only $200. You just get a new one. And also, I think for people who are maybe, shall we say, older and haven't really been very comfortable with technology, this is a great option for them too. It is a very, very simple computer. I have one client of mine in her late 80s, introduced her to a Google Chromebook, and she was a pro within 1 or 2 hours. Just gave her a quick lesson, she was good to go. So hopefully we'll have some fun here today. One of the things you pretty much have to have when you get a Google Chromebook is you need a Gmail account or a Google account. That will suffice, but I tend to recommend a Gmail account anyways. Just it's a good email service compared to some of the other options out there. When you get the computer, it takes only about 10 seconds to go from off to fully functional. Part of the reason for that is if you compare Google Chrome OS to something like a Mac or a PC even, the PC operating system, Windows, or the Mac operating system, Mac OS X, those are usually around anywhere between 4 to 7 gigabytes in size for the operating system. The Google Chrome OS is about 200 megabytes. So it's a fraction the size of what a full computer needs to turn on. So I think it's going to be really helpful for that too. If you really want a fast computer, it's great for that. Also, because it is based on Linux and all of these little apps that you're going to see are all approved, you can't get a virus. So that's another really nifty feature. So let's see here. I'm just going through my little notes. I'm going to give you a couple little tricks today, show you some of my favorite little apps, how to navigate, etc. So this is basically what it looks like when you're in the Google Chromebook. Now, one thing I do want to note before we really get into it today is that we taught this class live yesterday, and we ran the entire Google Chrome OS virtually and had a lot of problems. We had these random white screens popping up out of nowhere, which I'm sure doesn't actually happen on a Chromebook, but the problem is that I can't project the image that you're seeing right now from a Chromebook, so I have to run it virtually. So that being said, I'm showing you this right now using the Google Chrome web browser, but it's basically the exact same thing. And if there's any differences, I'll be sure to note it for you. So the idea here is that it is a web browser that has apps that can run within the web browser. So before we get into the apps, I do want to go over some of the very basic settings with all of you. Now, if you look at the top right of my screen, you see these three little lines right here. Anyone out there who has a Droid, these are going to look very familiar. This is basically Google's little symbol for control settings. So we're going to tap on that. And from here, we're going to go into the different settings, which is down here at the bottom. So let's go into that. Okay, so these are just all the little things that you can tweak under the hood to get the Chromebook to be the way you want it to be. So for starters, obviously you're going to want to be signed in. For those of you who are looking at this email address saying, what's up with that? Some of you may know I was on the television show Shark Tank. For those of you who are outside of the United States, you have a show called Dragon's Den. It's the same show, just in the US. It's called Shark Tank, and I had to create a fake email address for when I was on TV because, after all, I don't want people actually emailing me because it would have blown up. So ignore that. I just use that email account for demonstration purposes. You can tell Google Chrome what to do when you start up the operating system. Most people like to start on a very specific web page. The most common web page that people like to load, common web pages, are Facebook, your own preference for news information, whether it's MSN or CNN or whatever, or Google.com. Some people prefer that. That being said, you really don't need Google.com because up here in your little address bar, you can type in anything at any point in time, hit the Enter key, and it will Google search that term. And as you can see here, you can also tell it to set to open a few pages. So let's say you're a business person and there's a couple websites that you always go to all the time. You can program this so that when you turn on your computer, boom, it loads your stock page, it loads your banking page, it loads news, whatever you want, all at once. Okay, so that's one option right there. You can also alternatively tell it to pick up where you left off when you last used the Chromebook, or you can just tell it to open a new blank tab. You can get different themes here. Themes can get kind of cheesy. It's just a little way to give your Chromebook a little bit of a personality. They have some here that are kind of cheesy. You can go through and check out all the different themes here. But these are really just cute. They don't actually really play into the functionality of Google Chrome OS. But some of them are cleaner than others. You might like it. It doesn't really take up any space, so it's not really something you have to worry about. Now, if you're not a fan of Google, you can change it so that it uses something else like Yahoo, Bing, Ask.com, or, God forbid, AOL. And just by changing that, it'll change it for the entire operating system. If you happen to have a few people in your family, let's say you're the example I gave earlier where you have maybe you're an adult, you have a kid, or maybe a couple of kids, you can actually create multiple users on your Chromebook just by simply going here, going to Add New User. You can create a little icon for them. And if you are a parent, you can check this little box and make it a supervised user. So it's managed by you, but it's supervised. Let's hit cancel. Now, this default browser part, ignore that. That's only because of the fact that I'm not running the actual OS right now. We're going to go down here into advanced settings at the very bottom. And there's one part here in particular I want to point out to people. I'm big into privacy as far as I don't want companies tracking my every movement. So I'm going to give you a few different tricks to really lock that down today so that you don't just find that you're getting tons and tons and tons of ads popping up everywhere on the web. Here under privacy settings, you'll see here that I have the first 4 options checked. The next 2 are optional. You can do it if you want. And then definitely this last option right here, which will tell companies that you're sending a do not track request. This does not work 100% of the time. That being said, I am going to give you a trick to really lock it down. Because when you go to any website out there, there are companies that are tracking you. And part of that is normal. For example, if you go to our website, there's a portion of the website that it tracks how many people visit that particular page. It's not malicious. It's not, invading your privacy. We're not marketing to you. We don't sell your information. But technically speaking, it is a form of tracking. So, hey, if you use that feature on our website, I'm totally cool with it. We know approximately how many people visit our website, so it's not really a big issue. And after all, I use the same technology myself when I'm on the web. You can tell Google Chrome OS to save your passwords. That being said, as a teacher, I kind of tend to I don't recommend doing that. Here's the reason why. If your Gmail account or your Google account, I should probably say, is ever compromised, okay, so if anyone ever gets into your information, if they go here, they can get into all of your saved passwords. It's also the same reason why some of you may have noticed we have never created a tutorial video on applications like 1Password or other apps that are similar to 1Password, because here's my theory. If the CIA is getting hacked every single day from China, I'm pretty sure they can also hack 1Password. So for that reason, I tend to recommend to people that instead of doing this, instead of having your computer auto-save your passwords, it's usually a better idea instead to just have a password-protected document where you keep those. You can find a video on how to do that, of course, on our website. If you have trouble with your vision, this is a great little feature. This is part of the reason why when I'm working with clients, especially those who are, older, I tend to steer them in the way of Google Chrome, because you can tell it to automatically take everything on the web and make it a little bit larger. So you can adjust either just the font or the entire website. I tend to recommend keeping the font size here at medium and just zooming into the page a little bit. It tends to cause a little bit less distortion. So that's a really nice feature here. The rest of the options here don't really apply. I don't think we really need to go over any of them, so we're going to get out of that. Now, there's two different things that you can download in Google Chrome OS. There's something called extensions and then apps. So an example of an app would be something like Spotify, if you want to listen to music. That's going to be one of the ones that I'm going to cover in a little bit. An extension is an add-on to the web browser itself. It's going to affect the way the web looks to you. And you're thinking, well, what would I want altered about the web? Well, there's quite a few things, actually. For example, this one right here, I'd ignore this one here. This one doesn't tend to work very well. AdBlock Plus is an add-on for Chrome. And when you go on different websites and you see those stupid ads all over the place, this will block it out. It also blocks out ads on YouTube. Pretty handy, huh? So if you go and just add this, and by the way, these are all free. There is one that I'm going to mention that is something you pay for, but I doubt many of you will be very interested in it. I just had to buy it for a client of mine, that's all. AdBlock Plus, totally recommend it. It's been used by tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. It is awesome. The next one I love is this one here called Auto HD for YouTube. And I see Claire asked a question, how do we get these extensions? Don't worry, it's coming up. You might want to just jot these down for now, and then I'll show you how to get them in a little bit. Auto HD automatically converts every video on YouTube into the HD version. So you don't have to click on that stupid little gear icon and adjust it every single time if, like me, you really like watching videos in HD. Coupon Helper. This is a really cute one. I actually saw this one on, I believe it was the Today Show, and it just automatically, if you're on a website, let's say you're buying shoes, okay, this coupon helper will load in the background and it will look for any coupons on the web that apply to that particular item. Again, free. Now this one is so important, we created an entire tutorial video on it. This is called disconnect.me. Disconnect is the way to completely stop websites from tracking you. You may notice that at the top right of my web browser up here, there's this little D with a period next to it. That is the disconnect feature. So what it does is it looks for what websites are tracking you and it blocks them.
So they cannot see you. One of the questions we got a lot on that video was, it does show you who's trying to track you, but we didn't actually apparently say if it stops them from seeing you. Yes, it does. That's why it's called disconnect. Next one here, we've also created a tutorial video on if you use Facebook and if you're sick of game requests being sent by friends, this is a way to block it, despite what Facebook claims, which is that you can't. FB Purity is a free extension, and it just blocks all those annoying features in Facebook. For example, in addition to game requests, it'll block those little ads that you see on the right-hand side of Facebook. It's a really nice extension. Hope you get it. This one here does cost money. I believe it was $5 or $10. It's called Facebook Invite All to Event. Very simple. If you have an event that you're creating on Facebook, without this, there is no way to select all of your friends. You have to click each person individually, and by simply adding this feature, it's a great way to do it. Another thing that you can use with this is, let's say you have a page on Facebook. You can invite your friends, all of them, to like it with just one click. Let's see here. I'm going to skip a few of these. Invisible Hand is a really handy, no pun intended. It's a handy extension, similar to the Coupon Helper, but what it does is, let's say I'm on Amazon.com and I'm buying something. Invisible Hand is going to look on other websites for that same product and see if it can get it at a lower price. This free little extension has saved me a bundle of cash. If you really like looking at photos on Facebook, this one here is really handy. It's called Photo Zoom. And what happens is, when you are on your timeline, or rather, sorry, your newsfeed, and you come across a photo, if you put your cursor over that photo, it expands it. So you don't even have to click on it to see it in full screen. You just put your cursor over the photo and it immediately pops up. Very, very cool extension. Now, as you can see here at the very bottom, it says click here to get more extensions. This is also going to take you into the web store. The direct way to get into the web store for Google Chrome is just to go to chrome.google.com/webstore. A lot of people tend to bookmark that link, since that's where you're going to go for everything. There's a lot of apps that are out there, and some of these are pretty cool, some of them are pretty cheesy. So you can go through here, check out some of the popular ones, or the ones that are popular in your area. I'm going to give you just a couple of examples of some of my favorite apps here. One of the ones that I would really strongly recommend, it's also part of the reason why I recommend Gmail over other email providers, is Google Drive. Google Drive is very similar to Dropbox. Now, let's say you're buying a Google Chromebook so that you can go on a trip, okay? So you don't want to maybe bring your computer, maybe it's because you have a desktop, or you just don't want to bring an expensive laptop with you. You can download Google Drive on your other computer, and it's basically just a folder. So you take the files that you're going to need access to while you're on your trip, and you just drop them into Google Drive. Then on your Chromebook, you have access to all of those same files. It's exactly like Dropbox. The difference? Dropbox gives you 2 gigabytes of free storage, and I believe Google Drive now gives you 15, or maybe it's 16 at this point. Anyways, it's a lot of storage, and it's free. So that is one I would definitely recommend. If you want to get Google Drive, you just click up here where it says search the store and type in Google Drive. You can see here I already have it. Very simple. Another one, I got a lot of people who were requesting, is there a decent document program? Is there a word processor, for Google Chrome OS? There's a couple of different ways that you can go with this. One way which you may have never even thought of. One popular service, which is free for the most part, is Evernote. And actually, I have Evernote right here. Let me just pull it up. I thought I had it. Oh, apps, sorry. So it's basically just a web-based document program. So you can see here on the right-hand side, I have all my standard tools, font, bold, italics, etc. The only real problem that I have with this definitely does have to do with when you're done with your document, what comes next? What if you need to send this to someone? That's where Evernote sort of starts to fall apart a little bit, and that's where there's a better option here. So regardless of whether or not you're on a Mac or a PC, if you have a primary computer, one of the things that you have access to is Pages. Pages is a piece of software made by Apple. It's the equivalent to Microsoft Word. And while you can't load Pages, the program, on a Google Chromebook, there is another way. And the way is to go to iCloud.com. To get an iCloud account is free. And again, it doesn't matter if you don't have a Mac. You can still get an iCloud account. So let me sign in real quick with mine, if I can remember my password. There we go. Good. Excellent. So down here you'll see I have not only access to a web version of Pages for free, but I also have access to Numbers and Keynote. And for those of you who maybe are not familiar with it, Numbers is the Apple equivalent to Microsoft Excel, and Keynote is the Apple equivalent to PowerPoint. And in many cases, especially more than anything with Keynote, it really kicks PowerPoint's butt. So those are great options. Also, another thing that I should mention is that let's say you have a document that you create in Pages. You can then send it to a contact of yours as a Word document. That's really the big difference for why I tend to recommend using iCloud on the web as opposed to whether it's Google Docs or Evernote. Google Docs is another option that you can use. Google tends to kind of shove it down their users' throats, but it has that same problem as Evernote. You really can't send it to anyone. They'd have to go to google.com to read it. They can't just open it in Microsoft Word or another piece of software that's similar. Whereas with this, you can. So this is your free way around that. A part of Google Chrome OS is definitely about finding workarounds. It's not a full computer, okay? You're not paying $1,000 for this device. But there's ways to make it work for you. And for that, I am definitely a bit of a fan, especially when you consider the price. Another one I want to recommend, and yes, I see your questions coming in. You can type them in at any point. I'll be happy to get to them. Actually, I see one coming in here that I do want to answer from, I think that's Diane. It's just an interesting spelling that I haven't seen. Are all of these just for Chrome, or can they be used on Mac or iPad? These are basically for everything. Here's the little difference. On the iPad, you don't have access to the full Chrome web browser. But basically, most of these things you do still have workarounds for. So for example, Evernote, as an example, there's an Evernote app for the iPad. So a lot of these things do kind of cross, how do I put this? They work across the spectrum, no matter what you're on. If you have specific questions about specific programs, we can always go over that at the very end. Next thing I want to do is give you a good photo editor. There's a couple of different ones that are out there. Some I have kind of issues with making one recommendation. One of the apps, very popular, we've never really done a class on it because it's not amazing, but it does get the job done for some people, is Picasa. Picasa was bought out, I believe it was actually bought out by Google, and it's a pretty basic photo editor, organizer. It's free, and it's entirely based on the web. Picasa tends to be the kind of thing that a lot of people who own an Android device are big fans of because the droids talk directly to Picasa. It's where it stores your photos. So that you can just get, again, free. Just click right here, and you've got it. It's very, very simple. A couple other photo programs I thought I'd give a little shout out to, also free, is one called Pixlr, Pixlr Editor. Okay, for basic photo editing, you can see here you actually get some pretty cool tools in this, almost comparable to even Photoshop Elements. And Photoshop Elements, of course, they charge for that. With this, it's free. I can actually launch the app right now, so you can kind of see a little bit of what it looks like. So I can say create a new image. Let's just create a dummy image here. But look at this. Doesn't this look a little familiar to those of you who have used things like like Photoshop elements. You've got your lasso tool over here. And this is all free. It's a pretty cool service. Again, that one is called Pixlr Editor. Pixlr Editor. Not bad. The next one, for those of you who are music junkies, is a free service out there called Spotify. We've done classes on Spotify before. It's interesting if you compare Pandora to Spotify to iTunes. All of them kind of have their benefits and also points where they kind of tend to drop off. Spotify is a free service as long as you are listening to it from a computer. A Google Chromebook does count, obviously, as a computer. So you can go into, let's actually just open it. I have right here. Oops, I keep doing that. Spotify. It's all web-based, so you can create playlists on your real computer, or you can also use this. Go into Spotify on your Chromebook. Where did I put my, playlists. Here are all of my little playlists from my computer, and play it live right from the web. Yep. And that's how much I can play without getting sued by Maroon 5. So how about that? But you can use this program and just pull up almost any music out there. So I can go into search, type in Madonna, and instantly, for free, have access to, if not every song she's ever produced, almost every song. Okay? All for free. It's a pretty cool feature. Spotify is a really wonderful program. If you've never checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's sort of like, I compared a little bit to Pandora if Pandora had better licensing and if you could choose what you listen to. Okay. Next one. I'm going to mention it only because enough people use it that it is still, I think, good to go over it, which is Google Docs. Okay. So Google Docs, again, free service. It's a very basic document creating software. You can see you have all your tools up here, your fonts, alignment, bold, italic, etc. Once again, the only problem with this is the fact of what do you do when you're done. I've had someone once send me a resume using Google Docs, and it was like, no, you're not. If you send it to me on Google Docs, I can guarantee you it's going in the trash. You know, send a real document. This is nice as a temporary place to store things like notes, but as a real piece of creation software, I can't get behind it. But it is free, and it's out there for people who like it. Also, I should probably note, if you have a printer that has Google Cloud Print enabled on it, you can print directly to your printer from this online service. Even if you're hundreds of miles away, you can still print back home. So that's a little bit of Google Chrome. Couple other things I think I should go over here is the basics of the actual web. So you see up here at the top of my screen, I have all these little tabs that I keep clicking onto. These are all different web pages, okay? And so to create a new tab, all you have to do is click right over here. You see there actually is a little tab. When I click on that, it opens a new window. The fact that you see this right here, this is actually an extension for Google Chrome. This is called FoxTab. It just takes some of my most frequently traveled to websites and brings them all right here to me. And if you ever want to Google anything, you just type it right into your little address bar up here. So if I want to search for puppies, I can type it in right there and it immediately pulls it up. If you want to bookmark a website, also very simple. Let's say I want to go to, how about pcclassesonline.com. You see this little star icon at the top right of my screen. If you click on that, it will direct you to bookmarking. So you can see right now over here, it now has this page bookmarked. I tend to always recommend to people when you do bookmark websites, I always recommend renaming them because they tend to be really long. So I just take out the word home here, hit done, and it's a little bit more simple now. Let me go through some of the other questions here that people are submitting and just see if there's anything here that I want to cover while we're still recording before we get to your other questions. A question came in from Luzanne. When using Google Docs, doesn't Google retain the rights to keep and distribute all of your information? That concerns me when working with business information. Luzanne, one of the things you'll find about me when I teach is I am very careful about what I say and what I do not say. I have not heard that. It's not to say that it's not true, but I'm not 100% certain. So if it is true, I would do a little bit of research, ironically through Google, but I have not personally heard that. I'd also kind of question why Google would want your documents. I don't know why they would really go after that, but anyways, just want to point that out. So that's basically all that there really is to Google Chrome. As I said, it's a very, very speedy web browser, very speedy operating system. It's just that you really don't have the full 100% functionality that you would get with a computer. That being said, if you're going to be buying one for $200, you know what? I think it's kind of worth it, especially if you travel, if you have young kids, or if you're the kind of person who just maybe isn't so comfortable with technology. You don't want something so complicated as either a Mac or a PC. But for you, I think it could be a good solution. What I'm going to do now is open up the questions to everyone who is here live. For those of you who have been watching this video on our website, I thank you for joining us. Please, if you are watching on YouTube, you can click that little like button. Every time you click the like button, it's sort of like giving us a little tip. So we really appreciate it because we do get paid to do these videos. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get to your questions for those of you who are here live.